exciting to see the number of kids that came out for See You at the Pole. If you're not familiar with that, one Wednesday, I think it's the last Wednesday of September every year, the students around the nation gather at their flagpole to pray. At the 6th grade campus, we had, I think there was around 50, about 200 at the middle school campus, and then about 90 at the high school campus. So it was exciting to see that. And you wonder, what part do we have in that as a church? Well, officially nothing. But if you noticed in a couple of the pictures, you saw a cooler sitting out there, or you saw a couple of kids with a orange juice, looked like an orange juice bottle, or a donut in their hand. Well, Ryan goes and buys those and provides those when they do the See You at the Pole. And so you, in your giving, help to provide some of those things that the kids enjoy as they gather to pray. But it's really exciting to see that. Coming from an area where we did not have that very often, definitely did not have that number of kids at a prayer time. It's exciting to be here and to be able to see that. If you got a Bible, turn to Luke chapter 15. We're going to kind of start into studying Luke, this 15th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. And, when I wrote this message, I did not realize that the week that I wrote this message was going to be a bye weekend for Sanger High School football. Because I started it out with, what was it like to be in the crowd on Friday night with all of the other people in Sanger yelling and cheering for the Indians as they played and won another game. And so none of us were in the crowd on Friday night cheering on the Sanger Indians. But many of us were watching on TV as other teams played, and I'll show you one that I was watching last night after the wedding. Okay, I recorded it, so I made it to the wedding yesterday. But there is something amazing. I know if you're not an Aggie fan, you don't really understand it. Okay, but just imagine whatever team it is that you're a fan of, being in the crowd with 100,000 of your closest friends, yelling and screaming at the top of your lungs for 11 guys to take this funny-shaped piece of leather. I mean, think about how ridiculous football is. We are screaming for them to take this very funny-shaped piece of leather and move it in increments to get it past this one last line that's painted on a field. And when they do get it past that one last line, we go crazy, right? We're standing and jumping, and if you're an Aggie fan, especially if you have a good-looking date, you really like it when the Aggies score, because then you get to kiss your date. But we stand and we yell and we scream and we go crazy about a football game. About them moving this ridiculously shaped piece of leather up and down a field. And we even yell and scream when they stand there and stare across a line at each other. Before they even, the guy throws it between his legs. I'm trying to use simple terms here. Before they snap the ball. We're standing and yelling at A&M. If the other team has that ball, the stands are screaming and yelling, and you go deaf in that place. It's ridiculous when we really think about it. And about how excited we are if when the clock runs out, our team has more numbers, higher numbers on that board up there than the other team. Man, we just get so excited, and our entire weekend is good. This past weekend was almost a perfect college football weekend. A&M won. Texas lost. The only negative was Baylor won. All right, I just made half of you mad, didn't I? But isn't it ridiculous that we can just be so excited about which team has more points on the scoreboard? And it can make our entire weekend, or it can ruin our entire weekend. You ever wonder Why do we get more excited about a football score than about a sinner repenting? I want to read for you Luke chapter 15, verses 1 and 2. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." This man welcomes sinners and eats with them. First thing we need to look at in this is that Jesus was a friend of sinners. The biggest criticism of Jesus by the religious people, by the religious establishment, the biggest criticism, the thing that they attacked him for more often than anything else, and the thing that they got more upset about than anything else, was that Jesus hung out with sinners. That is what bothered the religious people, is that Jesus would go to parties with sinners. That just irked the Pharisees. It seems that Jesus actually preferred the company of sinners over the company of good religious people. It almost seems, as you read the scriptures, that Jesus was more comfortable hanging out with the sinners than he was hanging out with the saints. And also, the sinners seemed to love to hang out with Jesus. They wanted to be around him. And I've always wondered, why? What was it about Jesus that just drew sinners to him? What was it about Jesus that made those that were not walking in obedience to God, what was it about him that made them want to just come and be around Jesus? I'm going to give you 4 things. 1, he didn't judge them. Now I'm going to turn it right around and say this. He was honest about their condition. When I say that Jesus didn't judge them, we've got to follow that up immediately with he was honest about their condition, because that's important. It wasn't that Jesus just looked at them doing evil and doing wrong and said, "Oh, well, it's okay." Because sometimes when we have that idea of judging, that you can't judge somebody, sometimes what some people mean is, well, you can't judge me, that you can't ever say that anything I do is wrong, because that's being intolerant. No, it's not being intolerant. It's not even being judgmental by pointing out that what you're doing is inappropriate, is wrong, is sin. That is not judging somebody. That is going back to the scripture and saying, you know what? The scriptures say that action, that attitude is wrong. It's not judging them. Judging them goes beyond that. So Jesus didn't judge, but he was honest about their condition. Jesus told the sinners, "You're sinning." But isn't it amazing? He tells them this. They gather around him and he keeps saying to them, "What you're doing is wrong." But they just keep coming. Why would they keep coming? Because I think they recognize something honest, something real about Jesus. He loved them. He cared about them. But he was also full of joy. No matter what was going on around Jesus, there was a joy to his life. There was a spirit to his life. The fourth one, his personality was winsome. Look that word up. Generally delightful. He was just somebody you wanted to be around. There was just something about hanging out with Jesus that was good. Even for those that everybody else called sinners. Even those that the religious people would have nothing to do with, there was something about Jesus that they just wanted to be around him. Even though he was, as I said earlier, very honest about their actions and their conditions. They would see Jesus and they would just say, I just want to be around him. Why? Because he was fun to be around. You ever think about Jesus that way? That Jesus was somebody fun to be around? Can you imagine the stories and the jokes that Jesus and the disciples told sitting around a campfire? Some of us don't want to think about that. But I think that had to have been a great time to just sit around a campfire with Jesus and listen to him. And listen to him talk and tell jokes. A major part of my testimony is that when I was in middle school, I had this idea growing in my mind that Christians and Christianity was this sour, no fun kind of faith. And then I met Kyle Nelson. Kyle was in charge of the Role Ambassadors. And I know you're supposed to get out of RAs when you get into middle school. I've always been kind of backwards. I got into RAs when I got into middle school. I don't know how we did that, but we did. And he would take us camping. And if you can imagine a bunch of junior high boys sitting around a campfire with Kyle Nelson, and if you know anything about Kyle Nelson, you understand what I'm going to say. You can probably just imagine the kind of comments and noises and all of those things that occurred sitting around a campfire with a bunch of junior high boys and Kyle Nelson. And I remember the first time we were doing that, and we were laughing and cutting up and just having a great time. And I remember thinking for a minute, this can't be right. We're on a church event, and we're laughing about bodily noises. Right? We're junior high boys. You know, that's the funniest thing in the world to us. And I remember thinking, this can't be right. You know, I was thinking, man, we need to go call Brother Skip and just confess and, you know, ask for his forgiveness, because there's no way this could be Christian. And then I kept watching. I finally came to the conclusion that, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if we were sitting around the dinner table, yes. But we were at a campfire with just a bunch of boys. It was the funnest time that I had ever had as a Christian. That's the way Jesus was. Jesus was the kind that people wanted to be around him. Contrast that, though, with the Pharisees. They were not friends of sinners. I mean, look at the picture there. Doesn't that just look like a Pharisee? They proudly rejected any association with sinners. The Pharisees would proudly say, no, we do not hang out with sinners. We are too good for them. They must change their life before they can be around us. The common people respected the piety of the Pharisees, but they didn't know them, and honestly, they really didn't like them either. They would think about the Pharisees and they would go, oh yes, they're very pious, they're holy people, they're committed to God. But if you ask them, would you like to go hang out with a Pharisee? They would say, oh no, don't want any part of that. Because the Pharisees were the ones that always went around with their nose in the air, thinking, I'm better than you. And so nobody wanted to be around the Pharisees. The Pharisees didn't want to be around the sinners. As I was writing this, I was thinking about how many times have we told our kids to be careful who they associate with? How many times have we warned our kids to not be friends with those that are not followers of Jesus? Now, do we need to encourage our friends to have some very close friends that are other Christians? Absolutely. Do we need to encourage our kids and warn our kids about the dangers of being with those who are not followers of Christ? We do. But when we go and tell our kids you cannot be friends with those that aren't Christians, what we're telling them, honestly, I'm going to get very blunt, What we're telling them is, we really don't care if all of the other kids in your school who do not know Jesus, we really don't care if they go to hell or not. Because how are they going to come to know Christ if us Christians all hang out together and all do everything together? How are they going to come to know Christ if we don't go into the community, if our kids don't go into the school and live their faith and love the sinner? Do we want to be like Jesus, who was the friend of sinners? Or do we want to be like the Pharisees, who were not? As we look at the Scriptures, my hope is that you're going to say, I want to be like Jesus, the friend of sinners. We need to encourage our children to make friends with those who don't know Jesus. That is the only way they're going to hear about the message of Jesus Christ. It is because our teenagers go into the school and invite their friends to come on Wednesday nights that at the beginning of school we had a special night here on a Wednesday night, and 23 junior high and high school students accepted Christ. You hear that? Because our students went into the schools and made friends with sinners and invited them to come. And yes, they came because it was Zombie Bash and they were having Nerf gun wars and shooting zombies. Yes, they did. That's why they came. They came because it sounded like fun. And then they came in here and they listened to music. And Ryan gave a message. And 23 followed Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And those 23, almost all of them have no other connection to this church or to faith other than the fact that they came on that Wednesday night and they come on Wednesday nights. Our youth are doing it. Are we? Jesus tells a story here, beginning in verse 3. Then Jesus told them this parable. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. I tell you that in the same way there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. The search for the lost. As we look at parables, we're going to be looking at some parables over the next few weeks. Some things we need to remember. When you are trying to understand and interpret a parable, there are a couple of things. Number one, don't try to make every single point or part of a parable important. We can get ourselves into all kinds of weird theology if, as we read a parable, we try to make every single part of a parable be important and actually mean something. Sometimes the parts of the parable are simply there to make the story understandable, to make it real. And so be careful as we read a parable. Usually, Jesus is going to make it very clear what is the point of the parable of the story. Here in this one, the shepherd leaves his 99 sheep. He leaves them in the open field. Now, we hear that and we think, wait a second, that's not very smart to leave a bunch of sheep in an open field because something bad is probably going to happen to them. Well, you have to understand the context of this. When he's leaving them in the open field, he is leaving them in the care of other people. It's not like the shepherd just runs off and leaves his 99 sheep and there's nobody there to care for them. There's nobody there to watch over them. They're taken care of. He's got other guys that are doing that. Now he goes out by himself to find the one that is lost. You know, as I read that, I'll just give you a quick aside. You who are part of this body of Christ, who come and participate not only in worship, but participate in our Connection Bible Study classes. You're part of the 99. And there are many times that you might think, we focus more on those outside of the church, trying to reach those outside of the church than we do ministering to those that are here. I would say to you, no, we don't. We have deacons. We have Connection Bible Study classes. A big part of the focus of both of those ministry areas are those inside of the church. Our deacons have the responsibility to care for the members of the classes that their team is responsible for. Our Connection Bible Study classes, what are they about? Yes, they're about studying the Bible, but they are also about taking care of the needs of the people, of building up. You're the 99. If you are a part of this church, you are part of the 99 that are already here. That we leave in the open field to go off in search of the one that's lost. And we, just as the shepherd left the 99 in the care of qualified people, we do the same. We leave the 99 in the care of our deacons, the care of our Connection Bible Study teachers. If you're not a part of one of those groups, if you're not a part of a Connection Bible Study, I want to encourage you to do so. It is a way to safeguard your life. To be around other believers. Because yes, we need to go out and we need to reach those that are lost. But we also need to be here. We need to take care and to grow ourselves. And we need that home base that we can come back to. So the shepherd leaves his 99 and he goes off. You notice that he searches diligently. The shepherd searches diligently for the one that is lost. It's not like he leaves the 99 and he walks 100 yards off and goes, oh, well, can't find him. I guess I just got 99 sheep now. No, this idea is that he's walking and he is going as far and as long as it's going to take to find that one. Are we willing to do that? Are we willing to go as long as it will take? Are we willing to search wherever we might have to search for? To find the one that's lost and waiting to know Jesus? Are we willing to do that? And then when the lost sheep is found, the shepherd doesn't scream at it. The shepherd doesn't kick his sheep. The shepherd doesn't yell at him and call him a horrible sheep for going off. It says that he gently picks it up and puts it on his shoulders. Because he knows that sheep has probably used up all of its energy. It does not have the strength to walk back. And so he gently takes it and puts it on his shoulders and carries it back. Folks, when we go out to reach the lost, when we find the lost, we start to bring them back, we need to do it diligently. We need to search with diligence, but then we need to gently guide them back. You're probably not going to argue many people into heaven. You're probably not going to have many people come to Christ because you stand and yell and scream at them. People are going to come to Christ when we treat them like Jesus did. Willing to honestly speak about their condition, to speak about their life, but we do it with love, with joy. We encourage them to come and be a part. We love them into the fellowship. Do we really love sinners? Are we Jesus or the Pharisees? The friend of sinner or not a friend of sinners? I want you to watch a short video.
I met Kyle in baseball. Ever since then, he's just been a good friend of mine. So.
He was one of those guys that would always tell me what I needed to hear, how it related to the Bible, and how the bigger picture was than just what I was seeing right in that moment. And throughout high school, I got introduced to marijuana, and that danger to me was exciting, so I followed it.
He told me that, I smoked a little weed, and as a friend, I was just like, all right, cool. Kind of that. You don't want to be too invasive. You still want to be his friend. You want to be accepted by him.
from that moment on, it opened this door, this addiction that consumed my life. Eventually ending up doing cocaine my senior year.
I noticed he had been working a lot, but he had no money. And I noticed how it kept getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And that's when we started to say, what's going on with Kyle? Something's not right.
Some days I would go to church high with my heart pounding out of my chest, raise my hands in worship, and pretend like I was a Christian.
Well, it came out that his dad found some cocaine in his room, and things started to snowball.
It really took over my life, my thoughts, and how I acted. I was very short all the time.
No respect for authority.
I was always lying.
He was very secretive.
Didn't care who I stepped on and whose feelings I hurt.
Overall got in trouble a lot.
Pure hatred for the people that love me so much.
I remember the worst time in his life. He told me he saw some cocaine on a urinal stall. He did it on the urinal stall. Just didn't care. That's how addicted he was.
Maybe some nights I'd throw on Chris Tomlin and I'd get emotional and I'd cry and I'd feel bad about it. But the next day things wouldn't change. I would just go right back out there, right back to the vomit.
One of the scariest times of my life was his dad called us and was like, we don't know where Kyle is, we've lost him, we don't know how he's doing, and all of a sudden I get a phone call and it's Kyle. And I was like, man, where you at? Well, we're looking for you, family's looking for you.
I said, you know what? You need to get out of my life. I'm not going to change for you or anybody else. You need to get lost.
I tried calling him back, and it was raining, and finally it died. I was freaking out. I thought he had gotten in a car accident. I thought he had died. He was just hopeless. It was one of those things where, all right, something needs to be done. You know, I went over, I talked with his parents, I prayed with them, I offered as much support as I could. You know, luckily he was just passed out of his car. And they took him into the hospital, and I was just thankful he was alive.
It was at that time that I started to realize that there's people that care about you, and you should wake up.
I was like, you're going to be all right. Whatever you need to do, if you need to call me at 3 in the morning because you're struggling, call me.
He was that Christian friend that kept telling me why I should choose God's path instead of my path. He would always leave the conversation open with an invitation just to sit down and talk with him, to get me outside of the life that I was dying for. But the way he showed it was through love.
His family went to go get him help, sent him off to a chemical camp again. And there Kyle came back and changed the person. When we would talk, I told him some of the things I was struggling with, and he would just go, Romans 8:1, or he would mention on purpose scripture to see just his life change, to see his family go from just utter ruin and hopelessness. That's powerful. He apologized to me, and I said, dude, I'm just glad you're okay. He's made a full recovery. He's kicking it. He's having a good life.
Which are we going to be? The Pharisee or Jesus? There are people all around us that need to hear the story of Jesus. They need to see Jesus. They need to see love, mercy, grace. You and I have to decide, which are we going to be? And are we going to have the joy in our life to draw people to Jesus? Let's pray. Our Father in heaven,